set, hut.
As the hills of West Virginia resound with the sound of Golden Blue football.
Almost heaven, West Virginia.
Now let's bring on the Mountaineers. Goes around about 50, the 10 to 5. A touchdown, West Virginia. He did it.
He did it. Patrick White. Touchdown, Tay Von Austin.
The Don Nehlen's Mountaineers enjoy walking in where angels fear to tread.
I think you think that these guys are going to fall over dead for you. Well, I got news for you. They're going to punch you right in the mouth. It's Mountaineer pride!
Nothing cheap, nothing dirty, but West Virginia football. West Virginia football.
We've no doubt tonight they shouldn't have played the old Golden Blue. Not this night!
They've done it. They've done it. A perfect season. And the Mountaineers, for the first time in history, undefeated and untied.
Don Nehlen and his Mountaineers, for the second time, have finished a regular season with an unblemished mark.
Ain't no stopping the Golden Blue.
It is a great night to be a Mountaineer wherever you may be.
What's going on, Mountaineer Nation? Welcome into another live stream here on the Country Roads webcast, March 12th edition. As promised, wanted to come on here prior to West Virginia's first game in the Big 12 tournament, talk a little bit about that. So we'll do that towards the tail end of the show, talk a little bit about Big 12 basketball and West Virginia versus Colorado. I'll give you guys my prediction for that game and talk about what's to come in the Big 12 tourney, hopefully, for West Virginia as they start that off today. It'll be on 3 and ESPN Plus. But before we get there, we did have some football news come out. Not the best of news, something that I'm not too happy about, of course, when you lose one of your higher rated commitments that was going to be, at a position of need as well on the offensive line, as we know West Virginia completely rebuilding that unit. So talk about that as well here. It's kind of the two main things I got on the docket. Other than that, talk with you guys that are in here live. I know with this coming early in the day on a weekday, some people will catch on the playback. That's cool too. Whether you're watching live or after the fact on that playback here on YouTube, you can help us out by hitting that like button. It helps the YouTube algorithm a ton. And be sure and subscribe here to the channel if you haven't already. Stay up to date on everything going on around the WVU football program. Appreciate everyone that's tuned in live on Facebook or Twitch as well. If you're on there, be sure you come over to the YouTube channel and subscribe here so you can get the pre-recorded videos, podcast episodes, all that good stuff as well. But I appreciate you guys. Having said that, let's talk a little bit about the football news, because unfortunately it is a little bit on the negative side, but we'll address it and talk about why. And for those of you that don't know, what it is Aiden Buchanan actually flipped his commitment to UNC. I'm going to go play at Chapel Hill here. You see his commitment graphic he shared there with Bill Belichick lurking in the woods there behind him, but flipping his decision to go play at UNC instead of WVU. This hurts for multiple reasons, in my opinion, because I remember when he first committed and I did my commitment video updating the commitment of Aiden Buchanan. I was excited about it because we had built a good council pipeline, it looked like at that point, because we had gotten Kyle Altuner, the previous recruiting class. It looked like he was going to be maybe the center of the future at WVU. Then we'd gotten Aiden Buchanan, and then we'd gotten Gavin Crawford. And so it's like, okay, we got a little pipeline forming here. And then lo and behold, fast forward to now, Kyle Altuner's transferred to Virginia Tech. Aiden Buchanan's flipped his commitment to UNC, but luckily we still do end up with one of the three. Gavin Crawford is on campus. He enrolled early, going through spring practice at WVU, so at least end up with one of those good council offensive linemen after it looked like we were going to have multiple on the roster together here. We won't only have Gavin Crawford, it seems now, moving forward. So let's pull up our commitment tracker, which now, of course, will turn to the signees, really, after going through signing day, early signing day, and then national signing day. And you're probably wondering, how does he get out of it after already signing with WVU? Well, with the coaching change, players can be granted that release by the university, and West Virginia granted that to him, and he flipped to North Carolina. So pull him off of here, but still, despite losing Buchanan, which was a guy that I liked because just having that size coming in as a freshman is, obviously you can't coach or teach size, 6'8", 320. But, if you want to look at the silver lining, I guess, in this is necessarily linemen that are that big really aren't, usually what this scheme calls for. You've heard him talk about having agile offensive linemen that can run, move with the tempo and stuff. So maybe that's one thing that led to his decision to, flip his commitment and go to UNC. But nonetheless, a lot of these guys that West Virginia still brought in, some of these that have enrolled early, we've seen, getting good reps, and we've even heard high praise. Yesterday I talked about Rich Rod in his press conference singling out Scotty Fox, saying he's really impressed with the true freshman, thinks he's going to have a great career here at WVU. So, that's one early enrollee that stood out. I mentioned Gavin Crawford. He is from the same high school there in Good Counsel. He enrolled early and is at WVU and been playing well. And then a lot of these others are still some big names that'll be joining over the summer and, leading into fall camp. I'm talking about some of the more recent ones that I'm really excited about are Kamarius Bomar and Armani Weaver at receiver and defensive back there. And then, of course, some of the JUCO guys still yet to come in as well. So a lot of good signings still will join the Mountaineers over the summer. And when that happens, we will do roster updates here on the channel to keep you guys up to date with what's going on with the WVU football roster after the spring, because there's going to be a ton of movement on that with both, the guys coming in that are enrolling from the JUCOs and the high schools. And then also, of course, the transfer portal movement. West Virginia is going to have a bunch of guys leave, and they're still going to bring in, at least a couple handfuls of guys more to add to the roster as well. So we'll keep you up to date on everything going on there with the football roster. But do hate the loss of Buchanan, but hope West Virginia, picks up some good transfer offensive linemen to help fill that void. I think they're not done there on the offensive line quite yet. We're going to see some more movement post-spring, so we'll see what happens with it. But nonetheless, I see some comments in here. Do got some people jumping in. Channel member Earth Ether, appreciate you, man. As always, tuning in and chiming in. Appreciate your support. Got the nice WVU football helmet beside his name there. If you're in the YouTube chat, you can see that. And you can get that custom WVU football helmet badges by becoming a channel member here. You also get custom emojis, behind-the-scenes content, film reviews, game rewatches, player grades videos, snap counts during the season, injury report, all that good stuff. And we really appreciate our channel members help keep this mic recording and that camera rolling is what I always like to say. Can't thank you guys enough. See another channel member in here, Trey Edwards. What's going on, Trey? Doing good, man. I see you out there. Hope you're catching all of them, man. Get you some good trout out there. That's awesome. I hope you're having fun, and more than importantly, really, though. But nonetheless, hopefully you catch some fish, too. What's going on, Christopher West? He says that's dirty in reference to Buchanan flipping his commitment. Yeah, a little bit late in the process. Wasn't expecting that to happen with guys that you're expecting to be enrolling here in, the next couple of months or so. A late flip, but just got to roll with the punches at this point. We've already completely rebuilt the roster, so it's nothing really, no skin off this coaching staff's back, I don't think, because they're already expecting to make plenty of moves in the transfer portal as is, and they already know they have to cut down the roster from what they have, with us being over the roster limit that's going to be at 105 after that House settlement in April. Eric said that's the way I coped also. It might be too big for our system. Yeah, that's the one thing that's been okay, maybe that's what's going on here, because I was really excited about him. I think I named him as one of my kind of diamond in the rough guys when I first talked about the class back on signing day even. I really liked him on the offensive line, but we'll see what happens. West Virginia, I think, has brought in some really good pieces on this offensive line already. Let's pull that up really quickly, actually, before we flip over and talk about some basketball. Let's talk about the players that are here, and we saw some of the ones that are coming in there with the signings that still haven't arrived, and some of those guys are going to be, big pieces. I think that one of those will be William Reed. I expect him to be a starter on the offensive line. He'll be here over the summer. But let's see if I have the roster pulled up. I could find it here. I know I just had it pulled up the other day. There it is, the spring depth chart I did, rather. Let's pull that up really quickly. This was just kind of projections of a two-deep. And so you see right now it is a little bit thin because you really didn't return any starters on the offensive line. Landon Livingston did start a couple of games. You got guys that have played elsewhere, though. Of course, Xavier Bosley, he's not playing this spring. Hadn't been for a while. I don't know if he's back yet or not. I know for a period of time when the media went and saw practice, he wasn't involved there, but he's believed to be a competitor for one of the tackle spots. So, I think you throw him in there, but you're seeing a lot of young guys get to work throughout this spring. Guys like Nick Cray, Gavin Crawford, who we just talked about that enrolled early, Robbie Martin, who transferred in, Cooper Young, Justin Terry. Those guys are getting reps because you're really thin on the offensive line. But, you look at this, it's, Landon Livingston's a returner. Xavier Bosley's a returner, but he was, a first-year player at WVU last year. Didn't play a ton, but really played a lot at Jack State under Rich Rod, so maybe he has a leg up on the system once he gets involved. So you got Bosley, Young Bear transferred in from Tulsa, Kimo Makaneole transferred in from LSU, but most recently he's been playing defensive line. He just flipped to offensive line, but he was highly regarded as an offensive lineman coming out of high school. And then Tyke East Crawford, the offensive lineman that transferred in from Arkansas. Now, all of those guys are probably going to continue to compete for those starting spots, especially the ones that I projected as the starters here. But there's going to be other guys that come in that are going to give them great competition for those roles. Like I said, William Reed's one that we've already got committed coming in, transferring from Princeton, that I think has a great chance to be a starter at one of the 2 tackle spots. And let's see who else they bring in the transfer portal as well at that offensive line position. So, I think we did lose a guy that could have maybe been an early contributor or thought he was probably going to be, maybe in the previous system. And as we talked about now, maybe just not the best fit. But we do have a lot of guys that we've brought in and a lot of other guys that we're going to go and get. So I'm still not too worried about the offensive line, but that's, with the expectation that they're going to make some good moves here in the transfer portal following the spring. So we'll see what happens there. But, this is kind of the other projected depth chart that I did a few streams ago. If you guys hadn't seen it, just scroll through that really quickly. Just with the guys that are on campus here for the spring, that's kind of how I see things on the offense. And then on the defensive side, looks like this, where, you have a lot more guys that I think are going to be contributors in the fall, definitely. Save for maybe the defensive backs, where it sounds like they're still waiting and see on those guys and looking to maybe add quite a few more there. But I think, this front line here on the defense, I think Jamori Robinson will be a starter. Eddie V's got a great chance. Hammond Russell's got a great chance. Don't rule out McIntyre Jr., though. I think Braden Siders will get a ton of playing time at that bandit spot. I expect Chase Wilson and Reed Carrico to be your main 2 linebackers this season. Fred Perry's going to play a ton, transferring in from Jack State. Michael Coates is cornerback 1, definitely one of the best cornerback transfers in the nation. Then, the other cornerback spots are up for grabs with Devontae Golden Nelson, Derek Carter, Jason Chambers, Jacoby Spells, and who knows if they go and get some more guys. All new safeties. I think Tourney will start, though. He has experience in the Jack State system, playing under Zach Alley before a couple years ago there. And then, you see what happens with the other guys you brought in, Harrington, William Davis, Jordan Walker, etc. So that's kind of the spring depth chart there. The offensive line made me want to pull that up and talk about that briefly before we switch over and talk about some basketball. I'm take a swig of my coffee. I'll catch up on some of your all's comments, and then we'll talk about the Big 12 tournament beginning today, and I'll preview WVU's game against Colorado. Yeah, my good coffee mugs are dirty. I'm using my old one. This one's seen better days. I got half the paint's chipped off. It's just like going to be silver soon. All the blue's coming off of it. That one I've had for years. Let's see here. Earth Ether said they're scared, so they transfer. I did see several people saying, not hard edge or something underneath his commitment post that I shared there on social media. So, that's definitely one line of thinking that people are laying out as well. Let's see here. Battle of the Mountain States, Drumwolf says today at 3 Eastern. Let's go, Mountaineers. Hey, great way to put it. Didn't even think about that. Rocky Mountain High versus Mountain Mama, right? I like to see it. I think that's a good term there, Drumwolf. I like that, man. We'll get into that momentarily, talk a little bit about that game. I feel good about it for West Virginia. I think we're going to have a great performance. I'm hoping so anyways, that they come out and show out in this Big 12 tournament. Like we talked about in the previous stream, I think that maybe Javon Small feeling like he got snubbed by the Big 12 may make him come out and have a hell of a game. We might be seeing a game where Javon Small drops 30. That's what I'd like to see. We'll see what happens, though, for sure. Trey says probably last and first time he gets to get out there fishing, man. Hey, hopefully you definitely catch some then, Trey. I hope so, man. Hope so. Earth Ether said, hoping these new coaches can recruit some more O-line. Yeah, I think that we're going to be impressed with what this staff does, this new staff does recruiting-wise. I mean, you already see it with some of the we've got it 2026 commits, both I really like, especially the speedy receiver. And then the running back we just got for 2027 is a stud. So they're already doing a good job recruiting high school. I think we saw them come in quick fashion, do a really good job landing some really good transfers. Shout out to the scouting department doing a good job identifying those guys. Tyler Lessick, friend of the show there, working in that scouting department. But I think that they'll continue to do that in this next portal window coming up after the spring and really go out and get some guys at the positions that they need, because they're really doing a good evaluation here in the spring and finding out which guys they feel like can fit, they can win with in the system, and which guys they feel like they can't. That's why you've heard a lot of comments from Rich Roddy. Says they want to get more receivers. They already added Preston Fox. They went ahead and added one that way. They're probably going to go try and target a couple more. They want to go after offensive line, obviously, and then they mentioned the secondary again. They really are trying to solidify that secondary, and then maybe even another pass rusher or two to bring in, and that goes hand in hand with what Zach Alley talked about. He feels like is important to the defense is that edge contain, that being with the cornerbacks and the edge rushers, which we've seen West Virginia target a ton of both of those and bring in some really good players at both of those positions. We saw Braden Siders there on the depth chart at the Bandits, a really good pass rusher, and then Jamori Robinson, arguably the best pass rusher that was in the transfer portal. And you have other guys that you're bringing in over the summer that I think from the JUCO ranks that are good pass rushers, not to mention some others they may bring in there. So I think they're doing a good job trying to solidify the positions that they feel like may be weak links or have been weak links at WVU previously under the past two regimes even, which is good to see. And I think the offensive line will go ahead and get some more players added to it in this next transfer portal window. Drumwolf62 says, make sure you turned off the sound of the game today on ESPN Plus and listen to Tony Caridi instead. The announcers will probably cheerlead for Colorado. I would not be surprised at all. I think the main thing there is I wish there was a different option for it visually, because ESPN Plus is so bad, their presentation sometimes. We've seen it, what was it, one game this season, they didn't even have the camera. We were like, they had like a baseline camera shooting from somebody's iPhone. Another game, it was like the first 4 minutes didn't have the score bug up on the screen at all. And then throughout the season, whoever operates the score bug has struggled because they'll add the points to the wrong team, have to go back and fix it later. And then this previous game, I don't know who was handling the focus on the camera, but they didn't know how to focus it. It was like going in and out, blurry to good, like throughout the entire first half. Gave you about a headache watching the game. Felt like you'd been drinking or something trying to watch that one. So ESPN Plus presentation has been terrible all around. It's so bad, man. And it sucks that the majority of West Virginia's games are on there on the basketball side. So having to deal with that's been frustrating in and of itself. But I agree. Tony Caridi, one of the best in the business, and would rather listen to him than any ESPN commentator any day for sure. Eric Flower says, seems like Indiana has turned their interest to the Drake coach. Yeah. I knew there was still multiple people left on that list. I know DeVries was mentioned on that short list, but I've said from the beginning, from the time the Iowa rumors popped up to these recent Indiana rumors, that I feel pretty confident that Darren DeVries will be back at WVU next season. I don't see him leaving for either of those jobs. I'm pretty confident that he will return. That's just my opinion. Personally, I could be wrong, been wrong before, will be wrong again. Trey Edwards said, definitely cutting Tony on today. Can't wait for it. Appreciate the comments, guys, there. You guys got any other questions or anything, throw them in there. I'll try and touch up on those one more time, but let's talk a little bit about the Big 12 basketball tournament. Let's pull up the upcoming games for today, the schedule here over on NCAA.com. You can see today Iowa State and Cincinnati will be tipping off here in just about under 60 minutes. They're at 12:30. They're on ESPN. And then, of course, our game against Colorado, 3 o'clock on ESPN+. Baylor and Kansas State at 7 on ESPN+, and then Kansas and UCF at 9:30 on ESPN2. So to look at how things shape up in the bracket, let's pull that up really quickly, then we'll get into the game today against Colorado and talk a bit about that. So here's the bracket as we talked about. These times listed on this bracket are in Central Time, so it's actually 12:30 for this one. West Virginia's listed at 2. It's actually at 3 Eastern for us here in the Mountain State. But what the bracket there up top, you got Cincinnati and Iowa State. The winner of that will go play BYU tomorrow. West Virginia and Colorado. Winner will play Houston. Unfortunately, getting the number 1 seed. Tough draw there for WVU. But, hey, we're ready for whoever, and we'll take on whoever. But got to handle Colorado first before we get there and play, one of the better teams in the country this year, Houston. BYU, arguably maybe the hottest team in the conference. But Houston, I think, has consistently been the best team all year and one of the best teams in the nation. Could potentially end up as the number 1 overall seed, just depending on how things shake out. Then, of course, Kansas State and Baylor down here. The winner will play Texas Tech. And then UCF and Kansas winner will play Arizona tomorrow. So there's a look at the bracket as it shapes up currently. And then the last thing to look at before we get into the game specifically is Joe Lenardi putting out this morning for any of us that were in doubt of West Virginia's status. He has the Big 12 7 locks, and you see West Virginia included in that. So he's listing West Virginia as a lock now. One or multiple bracketologists who now list West Virginia as a lock. So I think no matter what happens today, West Virginia is in the big dance, but would still like us to see us get that 20th win. As I mentioned previously and have talked about in the past, Coach DeVries, every year that he's been a head coach, has had at least 20 wins. He can accomplish that again this time at West Virginia, which is probably the most impressive time that he's ever done it, in my opinion, has to be with West Virginia having the shorthanded roster, losing, Jaden Stone, never getting him involved, who was a guy that averaged 20 points per game, losing Tucker DeVries 8 games into the season. You were 6-2 at that point, but still finishing up, getting to the NCAA tournament and maybe getting 20 wins. DeVries just done an awesome job and can't wait to see what he does throughout his tenure here at WVU. But West Virginia listed as a lock by Joe Lenardi, so I think our NCAA tournament status is already solidified, but we still want to go out and have a good performance in the conference tournament. So let's talk a bit about that right now here, as West Virginia will take on Colorado, who, of course, last night, funny enough, for the second straight time, it's a team that only won 3 Big 12 games all year, but they're playing their best basketball of the season right now. The last stream I talked about, they beat TCU to end the regular season, and then, of course, those teams rematched to open the Big 12 tournament, and Colorado beat them again, getting a very narrow margin there, 69-67 win over TCU, but the number 16 seed in the tournament, Colorado, coming in on a bit of a hot streak now after back-to-back wins over TCU here, and will face West Virginia now, making it to the second round as a 16 seed. West Virginia, the 8 seed, had their first round bye, and they will take on Colorado. Of course, these two teams met earlier this year, so let's take a look at that first before we talk about this matchup and see if we can maybe use the past to help us determine the future a little bit. But West Virginia at that time was actually ranked at that point, and this was one of the better performances in a road game West Virginia had on the year. We know a lot of road games this season, West Virginia unfortunately struggled to score 70 points. This one they managed 78, and you look at the box score here for the Mountaineers, and it was a big game for Javon Small. 26 points, 7 assists, 4 rebounds. Sure, Colorado remember that and try and be keying on him, but a lot of teams have keyed on Javon Small, and he still found a way to score, so I think we'll see a big performance from Javon Small because of that, and of course, accompanied with the fact that I talked about previously about him probably getting snubbed by the Big 12, and maybe that motivating him a little bit. Jonathan Powell hit a couple of threes the first time we played Colorado. Ed Andre was in double digits scoring actually in that game. I think this was in the period where Amani Hansberry was still recovering from the injury that he had suffered earlier in the season, and this was a big game for Joe Yesufu. So last time, West Virginia's kind of 2 main scoring guards on the season, and of course Jonathan Powell, if you want to throw him in there as well, the best 3-point shooter of the guards, all had double-digit scoring games, which is probably a good sign, and hopefully West Virginia is able to replicate that in this one. Of course, for Colorado, Hammond is a good scorer, and he put up 23 points in that game against West Virginia. You got to think Buck Harris will hopefully be keying on Hammond. A little combination of him and some of West Virginia's other defenders maybe can slow him down. That'll be what West Virginia is looking to do. So let's take a look here at the matchup here on ESPN. So Colorado comes in 13-19 overall. Like I said, only 3 Big 12 wins, but playing their best basketball game of the season after back-to-back Big 12 wins right now. West Virginia 19-12, 10-10 in the conference. West Virginia favored by 7.5 here according to ESPN's bet. And then the matchup predictor has West Virginia has a 70% chance to win. As far as the team statistics, how they match up here, 68 points per game for West Virginia, 70 for the Buffaloes. Buffaloes are giving up 72 points per game. We know West Virginia has hung their hat on defense. They're only giving up 65 points per game. 45% from the field for Colorado, 43% for WVU. Rebounds nearly even here. Colorado with a slight advantage, 35-33. Assists right at 14 a game for both these two teams. both at 4 blocks per game and both right around 7 steals per game. Also, both coming in having won their last 2 games. We know West Virginia beat Utah and UCF to close out the regular season. We mentioned Colorado played TCU in back-to-back games, found ways to win one time in blowout fashion, and then, of course, the narrow margin that we just talked about there in the most recent matchup as well. So let's talk a little about the leaders of both of these squads. Let's talk about Colorado first because we know a little bit more about WVU. But Colorado on the season, some of their leaders, we mentioned Hammond, of course. He's kind of their main guy, their main threat. He leads them both in scoring, assists, and, of course, steals on defense as well. As you see there, 13 points per game, 3 assists, and a steal. Rebound leader is Baskin with 5 per game. The blocks leader there with just over 1 per game. Jakimovsky, I can't remember how you pronounce that, of course, is their other scorer that's right at double figures with Hammond. He's at 10 points per game. Hammond, a good shooter there, as you see, 39% from the three-point line. They do have a couple big men West Virginia will have to contest with. Of course, that is always an issue with West Virginia, is having to deal with other teams' size. West Virginia is a smaller team, but West Virginia's done a good job rebounding the basketball in spite of that, and I think most recently, really, it has been Amani Hansberry that's looked very good at doing that. He's got a little bit of Kevin Jones to his game, in my opinion, and I think he's really coming to his own here late in the season once he's fully healthy again, and I think we'll need a good performance from him and Ed Andre in this one. As you see, Javon Small, of course, the leading scorer. Amani Hansberry, as we discussed there, leads the Mountaineers in rebounds, getting closer to 7 per game. Assists leader, of course, Javon Small, getting near 6 assists a game. Buck Harris, one of the best defenders in the entire conference. I think the best defender in the Big 12 there, especially on ball. Nearly 2 steals per game. Ed Andre with over a block per game. He is the one player with size West Virginia does possess, and he has played well this season, coming off the bench at times and then starting at times when he's had to as well. Amani Hansberry, finally, it seems like the past few times we've talked about these basketball games, Hansberry's been so close to being at that double-digit scoring average, finally has gone over now, and West Virginia has 2 players averaging double digits now as he joins Javon Small. Most of the season it had been only Javon Small. As we know, Tucker DeVries been out since Game 8 of the season, but Amani Hansberry finally averaging over 10 now to go along with his near 7 rebounds per game. And then we look, Jonathan Powell, 35% from the three-point line, right there matching what Javon Small has done. And we know Jonathan Powell hit more threes than any other freshman in the Big 12 Conference. And so, the games where West Virginia's had success, they get Amani Hansberry knocking down a couple threes, Jonathan Powell knocking down a couple threes, and Joe Yesufu coming in off the bench and helping out scoring-wise. I think if you get those things, you get the performance from Javon Small I'm expecting. Hansberry and Andre handle things on the rebounding side. West Virginia should win this basketball game, in my opinion. That's kind of been a good recipe for the Mountaineers. We've talked about when they score over 70, they have a good record. Well, West Virginia, I think, remains undefeated on the season if they win the rebounding statistic, if they find a way to win that. So I think, look to that and see if West Virginia can perform well in this game, in that category. Of course, that will count on, Monty Hansberry, Ed Andre, and others. We've seen Javon Small get some rebounds in plenty of games this season. Buck Harris does a good job of that also. West Virginia kind of has to have all hands on deck crashing the glass with their lack of size, but I think they'll do a good job of that in this game. And like I said, I'm expecting Javon Small to come out motivated, perform well, and I think West Virginia will handle Colorado in this one. I think I'm going to give West Virginia the win 75-68. That's my prediction in this one, 75-68. West Virginia takes down Colorado, advances, and we'll go give Houston our best shot tomorrow, continue on in the Big 12 tournament. You guys got any predictions? Throw them in the chat there. I'll highlight some of your alls as well, but we'll get ready to close this one up. I'm sure everybody wants to watch the start of the tournament there, the Big 12 tournament coming up at 12:30, so I'll end this before that tips off here today, but I wanted to get a chance to preview this game as I previously promised. But I appreciate everyone that did come in here and tune in live, despite this being a early day stream on a weekday. Appreciate everyone that tuned in on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitch live. If you're on Facebook or Twitch, be sure you come over to the YouTube side, subscribe to the channel where you can get the pre-recorded videos covering all things WVU football, roster, recruiting, transfer portal, all of that good stuff, and of course our podcast episodes as well. You can get them on the YouTube side. If you are here on YouTube, whether you're watching live or you're watching this after the fact on a playback, just be sure to take a second, hit that thumbs up button. That helps a ton with the algorithm. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, be sure to do so. But leave your thoughts in the comments since you didn't get a chance to tune in live. But appreciate all you guys that did, and I'll catch up on your all's comments, and then we will call it a stream and get ready to watch some basketball today. Luckily, I have the day off work, and I'll get to enjoy some. I'm excited about that. So, let's see. Drumwolf62, appreciate you, man. Really kind words here. He says the best WVU channel on all of YouTube right here. Hit that like or subscribe button if you have not already. I appreciate that, Drumwolf. Really appreciate the kind words. And yeah, can encourage it. And if you're someone that can't get enough WVU content, you can become a channel member as well. Hit the join button in the video description. Go to the YouTube channel homepage and you can hit it. And, you can get all kinds of extra content. You can get behind the scenes content. Watch us record the podcast. Watch us record the videos. Monthly live streams where we just kind of hang out. And then, of course, during the season, you'll get film reviews, game rewatches, player grades videos, snap counts, depth charts, all kinds of extra stuff. So if you're someone that can't get enough WVU football content, can't recommend it, and we really appreciate that support. Helps keep this mic recorded and that camera rolling. But if you can't support us monetarily that way, then you can always hit that like button, as Drumwolf says, or subscribe to the channel. Both those are fast, easy, and free to do. Really appreciate those kind words, Drumwolf. The game is at 3 Eastern. I don't know why, the Big 12 always on their brackets list everything in Central Time. So whenever I go through, in our Around the Big 12 segments on our CRW podcast episodes throughout the football season, I always got to keep that in mind as well when I'm previewing the games and say, the next hour, because they're always listed in Central Time, much like that one is. It is at 3. So, I know it can get confusing when you're looking at the graphic, but like I said, that's Central. We're Eastern, so 3 o'clock on our end, Eric. Drummel says, hope Javon shows up big to prove the haters wrong. So do I. It'd be cool if WVU wore t-shirts coming to the game with like small MVP on the chest or something. Hey, I think that would be pretty sweet. That would be a nice touch, but I don't think it's really Coach DeVries' style. I think he's more along the lines of, hey, let's just prove it with our performance and go out here and put on a show, and we'll let our talk and our play do the talking rather. And I think that's kind of the status that they'll take. And I hope that, like you said, though, Javon Small may come out motivated, have a big game. That's my bold prediction is I think we could see a 30-plus game for Javon, game where he hits 30 points. I'd say at least 25. He's going to score in the 20s in this one, in my opinion. Hopefully I'm not wrong about that, but I think we're going to see a big game from Javon and a West Virginia win. Hopefully I'm right. If so, I'll try and come back on here again tomorrow morning and preview the game before we play Houston as well tomorrow, and have another live stream, and any other news that comes out in the meantime, in between time, of course, we'll talk about that as well. I always try and get on here and chat with you guys multiple times a week, as you guys know, so be sure you're subscribed here to the channel so you get those notifications in your feed, and you can come chat when we do go live. But if you didn't get a chance to throw your thoughts in the live chat, throw them in the comments. Like I said, I'll hop off here before the tournaments get going, but I really appreciate you guys. As always, I'm Jordan Cruz, and until next time, let's go Mountaineers.